you can join me live on YouTube right now. And you know that if you had liked and subscribed the YouTube channel and hit the notification bell. Hi, YouTube. How y'all doing? Somebody was like, hurry up. We got to get going. I appreciate y'all. And yes, Urban View, I am now live on YouTube as well. Man, y'all, we got a lot to talk about. And it's going to feel, as I told my audience, it's going to feel kind of like you're drinking from a fire hose because there's a lot to get to. We have Amani Gandhi waiting for us. And so we have a phenomenal packed show today. But we are talking about the way in which Tesla is tanking, the Dems are debating, and the judges have jumped back into the chat. We learned overnight, and actually over the course of the past 2 days. I just couldn't get to this yesterday because we had so much other news that we had to cover. But what we learned yesterday, or not, what I'm going to tell you right now, what we're going to talk about right now is the fact that the Trump administration has received a blow. And then they kind of got a boost. So let's talk about the blow first, then we'll talk about the boost. So they have to, according to the judicial opinion that just came out over the course of the past 48 hours, they now have to reinstate the thousands of probationary workers that they fired. And I want to just explain what they mean by the word probationary. These aren't people who were new to this work. Probationary workers in the federal governmental context are workers who were so good at their job that they had just been promoted. The promotion to the new role is where they sit in a probationary status because they used to do a previous role. Then they got really good at that role and got promoted because they were talented, they were deserving, they were meritoriously deserving of that new position. And so when they say that they're firing probationary workers, a lot of times we think about the term probationary as if this is somebody who just got to the job and he has a 90-day probationary period. And that is true in the non-federal context, but in the federal context, it actually means something different. It means these people were amazing at what they were doing previously. And so now they are being elevated into a greater position of leadership. And the Doja Boys was like, what we're not going to do is respect their excellence. Because remember, in a Doji Project 2025 America situation, you don't respect talent. You don't respect merit. You don't respect actual intelligence. You respect white skin. That's what you respect. And that's really all you need to be white, entitled, and incompetent in order to be considered qualified. That is the reason why they are removing all notifications or information or data about the non-white males who were in places like the military or who accomplished other things in the American governmental apparatus. Now, it doesn't mean that those people who were not white males didn't actually do the thing. It just means that the white man who is in charge right now is so very, very sensitive. They don't want to know about it. How dare you be black and successful and I have to actually know that you were black and successful? How dare you not have a penis and have accomplished things? And I, a fragile white man who believes in the superiority of white males who have penises, I do not have the emotional fortitude to actually learn about your excellence because I'm fragile. Because again, racism was only a trick that wealthy white people put together to convince poor white people to support the system of slavery, which works directly against the interests of poor white people. And again, I got to give it to the wealthy whites because the wealthy whites were intelligent enough to realize that if we can convince these poor white people to support the free labor system that's only going to benefit us, the wealthy whites, we have accomplished a lot. And friends, they were right because that's still what they're doing. Racism is a big hat trick being played on poor white people. It just so happens that black people and other non-white people are the victims, but the poor whites are the ultimate mark. Sorry, Clem and Vern, but y'all should know by now. Anyway, according to the report, the Donald Trump administration now has to reinstate at least 24,000 federal probationary employees. And that means that all of these savings that elongated Muskrat and who is the true president of all of the savings that they secured for the American people ain't really no savings. Because according to the records, more than 18 federal agencies now are going to have to deal with the fact that they have to re-employ all the people that they just got rid of. Now, most of the folks who are reinstated are now being placed on administrative leave. And I had mentioned this part yesterday. But what that means is when Doja Boys, when they say we done saved America all this money and it, they have not saved anything. They are now having to pay federal workers essentially to stay home because they don't actually want them back in the office, but because they did not follow the procedure, which is quite frankly a longstanding procedure. Everybody in the federal government knows that if you want to fire somebody, there is a way to do it, but elongated Muskrat don't know things, which is one of the reasons why Tesla is tanking. So Tesla is tanking, and we got to talk about that because not only is it tanking, you have shareholders of Tesla You got board members of Tesla. I said shareholders. Yes, the shareholders are selling their shares. That is absolutely happening. It is happening, and the stock price and the value of the company is tanking. But you also have Tesla board members who are making so much money by shorting the stock. Let me get to my page here. I got my Financial Times situation. I know I love me a good newspaper read. So according to the Financial Times, we are in a situation right now where Musk's political activities, meaning running Doge, Musk's political activities has put a dent in the sales. In Europe, sales have dropped almost 70% of Tesla cars. And we have right now information that says Tesla's market value has plunged more than $700 billion ever since elongated Muskrat got inaugurated. I mean, the other president, what's his name? Oh, Donald J. Trump. The Tesla's chief executive's public interventions in European politics, including support for far-right parties, have contributed to falling car sales. According to one of the leaders in the Tesla company, they said Musk is on the wrong side of his buyership. Now, why would they say Musk is on the wrong side of his buyership? Listen to this part. Y'all ready for this? Because it's not people with cowboy boots who buy Teslas. What they said was, elongated muskrat, you're pissing off the wrong people. It's the liberals, the people who believe in climate change who buy Teslas. The cowboy Ford F-150 truck driving people with a Confederate flag hooked up to the back of the truck, they not buying a Tesla. Teslas is for beta males. We also learned that the leaders of the Tesla Corporation sent an unsigned letter to the Trump administration talking about your tariffs are really going to hurt our bottom line. Now, they didn't want to sign it because ain't nobody want to get their asses handed to them by Donald Trump once he got the letter. But it was like, these tariffs are bad. They are awful. They are terrible and doing us no good. According to the reports, JP Morgan last week cut its end-of-year Tesla target price from 135 to 120, writing, quote, "We struggle to think of anything analogous in the history of the automotive industry in which a brand has lost so much value so quickly." Now, I'm not sure at what exact number, if the stock falls below, that they get to call the loans back that were given to purchase Twitter. I believe it's around $115. And the fact that JP Morgan Chase is now writing down their targets down to 120, it's a problem. It's a problem for the muskrat. And I'm glad about it. Now, obviously, because I don't own these airwaves, I have to say things like, we do not support violence of any sort. And that's true. We do not support violence of any sort. I'm always in fan of self-defense, but I do not support proactive violence, which means that I am not in favor of engaging in property damage to Tesla stores, for example. But I do note that a lot of Tesla stores have been victimized, or no, not victimized. Not going to use the word victim for Tesla, have been vandalized, I should say, as a form of protest. And so while, as one comedian says, I'm not saying it's right, but I do understand. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I have an understanding of the issues and the things that might motivate it. In any event, we need to also talk about what's shifting in the Democratic Party. Now, I know a lot of y'all are still mad at Chuck Schumer. No, a lot of y'all is actually mad at Hakeem Jeffries. There's a lot of folks who are saying, listen, it's a good thing that Chuck Schumer decided to lead the Democrats, the 10 of them, into voting to keep the House open, or I'm sorry, to keep the government open, because it would have been a terrible, awful, no good, very bad thing that would have happened had they shut down the government. And that's true. It would have been a terrible, awful, no good, very bad thing. Similar to the terrible, awful, no good, very bad thing that we're dealing with now. Now, there is also the concern that had the government shut down, that elongated muskrat, the true president, would have been able to decide which agency opens up, which agency doesn't. And all of that, frankly, it's projecting what we think would happen into the reality as it is right now. I'm not mad at that. I respect it. And like I told y'all, when I called Chuck Schumer and told him what I wanted, you don't have to agree with me. You can tease this out and game this out as you wish. I just need us to be engaged with our elected officials. But it appears the Democrats are starting to realize that, one, they ain't got no power. And the reason they got no power is, yes, because there was voter suppression. Yes, there were poll sites that were bomb threatened, but the reality is voters didn't turn out. And we can talk about that. And I'm not blaming the voters, but we are going to, as Reese says, we're not here to coddle your motherfucking feelings. So the reality is voters did not turn out in the same numbers. Even the states that Kamala Harris carried, she carried to such a lesser degree than Joe Biden did because of decreased voter turnout. Now, we won't have the final voter turnout numbers for another 2 months, I believe. But the reality is there was a lot of voters who just stayed home. And it is what it is. We can do with that what we will. And part of the reason they stayed home is because, one, they were not civically educated, but also they were not inspired. And a lot of us still vote out of a need to feel moist about who it is that we're voting for. I know that disturbs some of you, but it's true because we don't have a very sophisticated understanding as to how elections work. It's not our fault, particularly in the Black community. From 1619 until 1964, we could be killed for even trying to have these conversations, child. Meanwhile, the white folks were sitting up in well-lit buildings having conversations about how to draft constitutions and how to create funnels of money, how to build a candidate bench, how to hold elected officials accountable. Meanwhile, child, we was out sneaking in the woods just trying to figure out how to get our kids to freedom. So it's not like it's our fault we don't have the greatest levels of civic sophistication. It's one of the reasons I do the work that I do when I'm not on these airwaves at the law center that I run. Having said that, however, the Democrats are meeting people where they're at to a slightly greater degree. We learned that, as Hakeem Jeffries announced over the past several hours, that the Democrats are going to be blitzing the nation with information. Basically, they're like, listen, son, we know that Republicans ain't trying to have no town hall, so we're going to increase our town halls. We saw in Florida that the Florida Democrats was like, we are coming for your lunch, Republicans. The Florida Democrats launched a town hall campaign in red districts. We're seeing similar things happening all across the country. Governor Tim Walz is back. I feel like he's got presidential intentions. Now, I don't know what Kamala Harris is trying to do. I don't know what we don't know her plans, but Tim Walz is out there, and I feel like he's got presidential intentions. And, until we hear from other candidates, potentially, I could entertain that. I could definitely entertain that. Tim Walz, keep doing what you're doing. But what we learned is that Democrats are now blitzing the nation. They are going to be, according to them, having regular, repeated outreach and engagement where they are talking about the stories that matter, as in Medicaid is under attack. We're going to go to places where a lot of people need Medicaid. We're going to go to the places where a lot of people would be harmed by Medicaid being cut. We're going to go to places where people need in-person Social Security office access, even though the Republicans are trying to cut it. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. They were speaking at a rally yesterday at the Brooklyn Hospital Center where U.S. Congressional Representatives Nydia Velasquez said that up to $880 billion could be axed from Medicaid to primarily pay for the Republican tax cuts. And y'all, that's what they're going to have to do, because right now they got the power of the tongue. They ain't got the power of the purse, the Democrats. They ain't got the power of the White House, the Senate, nor the Congressional House of Representatives. But they do have the power of communication, such as it is. Now, we know they're not the best at communicating, which is one of the reasons that those of us who know what's happening are going to have to tell the story. We're going to have to break it down. We're going to have to explain to our community members what's happening, because we are the trusted voices. And if we are the trusted voices, then we have to use our voices, not because we're trying to save the Democrats, but because we don't want to live under a homicidal, genocidal, white nationalist raised in apartheid Nepo baby. We don't want to live in the world that he's in charge of. It ain't about saving the nation. It's about saving ourselves. Because every time the 92% talking about we sitting on that building, that rooftop, watching the flames, I'm like, well, who's at the firehouse? Because eventually them flames going to hit the building that we sitting on, and I'm going to need somebody to put the fire out. Quite frankly, there are some people sitting on top of the building watching as the city burns. The rest of us are actually doing the work of building our communities, not to save the nation, but to save ourselves. So, my friends, we got to go to commercial break. Imani Gandy is going to be joining us on the other side. We're going to be talking about this case where the midwife in Texas has been arrested and is facing up to 20 years of criminal prosecution for providing what the Attorney General is saying are abortion services, which are now banned in the state of Texas. We also have Josh Weil, who's going to be with us in the second hour. He is the proud single father, public school educator, and he's fighting to represent the great people of Florida in the U.S. Congress in one of the special elections coming up on April the 1st. Lots we got to get to today. YouTube, we appreciate you. Love y'all. Got to go. Much more to come on the Lurie Daniel Favorite Show. We'll be right back after this. Bye, YouTube.